All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our third ever live webinar here at Rebelway. I'm Caleb. I'll be moderating today's webinar, but I certainly will not be teaching anything in Unreal. That will be left to Urban Bradesco, who is our host. He has an incredible presentation to show you guys. But before we get going, we wanted to show you something that we are just super excited about. So last week we launched our Rebelway student reel for 2021, and the homework's insane. I mean, it rivals that of Hollywood blockbusters. So I'm going to play it, and we're all going to geek out over this just for a second.
Dude, yeah, especially that last shot with the, it looks like it was shot on the phone. It's so good. It's the best one.
So good, man. Yeah. It's so funny how those projects compared to like the homework that I had in film school, it's not even on the same planet. Like Rebelway students are absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think each year we get way better. We get better in teaching. We are getting more and more students, and the homeworks get better and better. And I wouldn't even call them homeworks. It's just, it's projects that people do after they get some knowledge from us. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes they know they have a really rich background already in VFX. Sometimes they're a complete beginner, and we try to help everybody to achieve whatever their goals essentially.
Yeah. And that's a good point that I think we're beginning to talk to a lot at Rebelway, is the fact that, our instructions and our courses up to this point, I think most people are like, oh, it's like the advanced highest level, like ILM quality. And that's absolutely true. But we're really introducing a lot of beginner content to help people bridge the gap so that they can get there, even if they don't have a strong foundation in VFX. Mm-hmm. And so it's really cool to see that we now have a pipeline from someone coming to us and they're like, hey, I want to learn VFX for the first time. And now they can take Houdini fundamentals, an intro to effects, and then they can branch out from there and learn what they want to learn. It's super cool. And I think it says a lot about just the work that you and Saber have done over the years, and just our entire team of instructors. It's really exciting.
Yep, I agree 100%.
So I think that's all the housekeeping things that we need to address here. I just want to introduce our host real quick. So he is an incredible real-time effects artist who has worked at AAA game studios. He's worked on cinematics for projects including Destiny 2, Gears of War 5, Days Gone, Love, Death, and Robots. You might have heard of a few of those. He is also the vice president and creative director here at Rebelway and the instructor of real-time effects for games and cinematics. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for our host for this morning or evening, depending on where you're at, Mr. Urban Bradesco.
Yay! I'm just imagining an applause. Anyway, yeah, dude, thanks for the introduction. I don't think anybody introduced me in that way before. It's kind of weird. Anyway, should I just start and start sharing my screen? And just, yeah.
Let's do it.
Does that work?
Looks good.
All right. So what are we going to do today? Essentially, I'm going to show you guys. So this is essentially the first real-time webinar that we have. And I think we're going to do multiple versions of it. So this is part one. We're going to probably do part two and part three for the Pyro stuff as well. But for part one, I just wanted to go through some of the, I wouldn't say basic, but the things that, at least for me, working on those projects, I usually had to do a lot of the looping stuff, like looping smokestacks, looping explosions, and anything in between, because that's actually very valuable. And I'm going to show you a bunch of breakdowns from Battlefront 2, because I think they have some of the best explosions in kind of real time, like almost photorealistic explosions in a game. So we're going to go through all of that. I'm just going to talk about a bit of the theory, a bit of the art direction, and then we're going to go into Houdini, and I'm going to show you guys how, essentially show you guys how to loop some stuff on different like on a smokestack, and we're going to loop an explosion like this. So that is, just hide this. And we're also going to jump into Unreal, where I'm going to show you how then you can use that looping smokestack and actually use it in a game. So let me just go back to Premiere. So yeah, the title, if we had a title, it would be sure, but can you even loop? And essentially, this is what we're going to be taking a look at, how to do something like this in Unreal. And all of them, like I have a bunch of different smokestacks here, and they're all, it's the same asset. But in some cases, you wouldn't even know, because I scaled it up and down. I changed the offset, the timing, and the lighting also helps, because the background is blue and then the smokestack is orange. And I think it works quite well for just being one asset. So we're going to take a look in Unreal how this is set up later. This is the render of that smokestack, and you can see it's looping. And smokestacks like this are actually quite difficult to loop, because they have, and you can see in some cases it's not a completely perfect loop, especially in this rendered version, because you have such low density, so low values of density, and that is very difficult to loop. You can see here some of that density is kind of being eroded away, just so it loops a bit better. But this is the rendered version, and this is looping as well. And I saw this loopable explosion thing from Battlefront, and there's a whole thread on this. I can quickly show you guys here from Simon. He did a whole breakdown of a lot of different effects in Battlefront, and I think you guys should check this out, the thread. It's very cool, but I'm going to show some of the examples from it. So this is one of the loopable smoke explosions they have, and it's actually quite interesting, because the explosion is still going upwards, but it's static in the middle, and they use it here. You can see it being used here quite well. So if you look at on the left, you can see there's actually 3 of them. So if I can quickly do my drawing thing here, there's actually 3 of these looping things, and they just continue going up. And the reason why you want them to loop like that is because you can erode them at any time you want. So you have full flexibility on how long the explosion is going to last because of it. So that's the one they used here. And I tried to recreate it, and this is what I got. So it's, I think it's very close to what they had, and this is just another version. And again, it's literally an explosion, but it's just looping in place, and then you can do whatever you want with it. In this case, you can do stuff like this. So I'm going to show you guys how to do explosions like this, because I think they're pretty cool. So we saw this one, and the next one is kind of a breakdown of all the elements that they're using. So you can see they have fire, you have ground smoke, sparks, debris, some more debris, chunks of metal that are actually colliding with the ground, more sparks, and then all the different layers that make that effect awesome. And at the end, they have that smoke, and you can see them again, the 3 spherical explosions that are happening here. Another really cool smokestack in this case. So they have, like, this is really good. Like the way they have it set up here is amazing with the light and everything, and with the gray marching. It's top of the line for sure. Here's another example with the lighting in place, and they're probably using that 6-point lighting setup. That, let me just quickly showcase something. Maybe I have it here. So the 6-point lighting thing is, it looks like this, and I show how to do it in the actual workshop on the RebelWays website. I cannot show everything here because that would take us a couple of days, but this is essentially it, and they're using it quite well as well here in this case. And you can see they have multiple planes, so it's not just one simulation, it's actually multiple loopable smoke spheres, and they have actually a lot of planes here. I would wonder how that actually affected their performance, and if they actually used so many planes, not spheres, sorry, like grids for this. But yeah, it looks amazing. So that's what they use, and this is the 6-point lighting setup again. You can see what they use for the smoke trails, which is quite interesting. And this is all the grids that they were using for that explosion for this one, which is quite a lot. But it does look amazing, but that's a lot of freaking grids. And that's another smokestack. Yeah, for some reason this video doesn't want to play that well. But yeah, it looks pretty good. It looks very similar to what we're going to be doing today, this one. I think they still had multiple grids here, but I'm going to show you guys how to do it with just one simulation in Houdini and how to loop it. And again, here they have, for the blasts on the ground, they have loopable mini explosions. Yeah, so that looks pretty cool. Some more examples from Star Wars. You can see here front and center that explosion, and it's looping again, and then they just dissolve it and erode it out. So that's the whole beauty of having it loopable. You can do whatever you want with it. So that's why most of the game assets in games, most of the assets in games are usually loopable, especially when it comes to smoke stacks and explosions. And you can see there's a bunch of smoke stacks here. I'm just going to play this. A lot of explosions, a lot of smoke stacks. So probably a few people had to do just this for the entire game. Because you can see, if I stop here, you have smoke stack in the distance, explosions. There's a smokestack here, one here. Just a lot of them. Look here. So these smokestacks, if you pause here and you look at this, it looks very similar to what we're going to be doing. So let me just open this up so it can run in the background. And again, more smoke. Here you have smoke again. But yeah, the effects are just going to give you more life to your scene, and it's just going to make things feel more alive, and like it's actually alive and a breathing world. Cool. So that's the first part where I just kind of geek out on the very cool simulations that they have in Battlefront. Caleb, should we play the trailer again for the real-time effects? I kind of have it lined up here, but I think if you showcase, if you sure play it with the sound and everything, it might be a bit better. I've seen that trailer a million times. Anyway, let me start screen sharing again. Anyway, so I have this opened up. So this is the project we're going to be taking a look. I mean, to be honest, guys, there isn't that much to take a look here. I just got a bunch of assets from Megascans, and they look good. We have some amazing God rays here happening. But this is the smokestack here in action, and you can see I literally just duplicated a bunch of them and scattered them. And these guys, they don't even have motion vectors. It's a bit of an overkill in terms of texture size because it's 4K. And like I said, in this case, I didn't care too much about performance. It's mostly for showcase interest purposes. And you can see we still have that nice density happening here. It's a 4x4, 4K by 4K texture, and it has 128 frames. Now you could optimize this a lot, and probably somebody's going to yell at me for doing it this way. You can essentially, if you have motion vectors, you can even export 64 frames, in some cases 32 frames, and that might be enough. And then with motion vectors, you can slow it down to get the additional time that you need. In this case, for this presentation purposes, I didn't do it, but it still looks pretty good. And it is slowed down quite a lot if I look at what the material looks like. I was actually slowing it down quite a bit, and it's just doing the basic frame blending, but it looks okay. I guess we could try to slow it down even more, but you start seeing the stepping, which you wouldn't be having if you just had motion vectors. But yeah, this is how the material looks like, just a simple sub-UV function. And then I was also powering just a bit to get rid of some of the lower densities here, because they were giving me, I can show you, it still looks okay. But in it, you get this edge, which is, just additional alpha happening. And you can fix this in some other ways that I show in the workshop. But the easiest way is to just power it, and it's going to go away. There you go. Beautiful. Beautiful. But yeah, that's how this project looks like in terms of working in Unreal. If I go, well, you know what? I'm just going to quickly show you how, and all the stuff that I show in the, in the workshop. And you can see, essentially, I show how to do a bigger smokestack, how to do motion vectors, how to render out different lights for different passes, because we actually do that six-dimensional lighting setup. I also show, you can see the motion vectors here being done in Houdini, which is not the easiest, by the way. There are other ways of doing motion vectors. You can do it in Houdini, like you see here. You have other softwares that you can do that with as well. Here you can see I'm actually, so here we actually built the setup to use the motion vectors, and I don't know where I did. Essentially, I pack. So here you can see I pack a bunch of frames into the red channel. So 64 frames into the red, and then 64 into the green channel. And then you have in the blue channel, you have the alpha for the red channel. And then in the alpha channel, you have the alpha for the green channel. And that is a way of stitching multiple frames in different channels, which is just some sort of wizardry. Some more stuff from the workshop. I don't want to bore you guys with this, but here you can see how we can then use those different light passes. In this case, they're red, green, and blue, but then you can multiply them and actually change them in Unreal, which is kind of cool when you think about it, because you can. They're not dynamic. They're not dynamic in this case. You have to animate them, but if they're just for a background thing and the lighting and the sun is not changing, it should be completely fine. So this is the motion vector thing, and then I also go through how to do the normals and everything for explosions, and all the good stuff that you would need in a project for doing VFX. anyway, let's go to Houdini. So I'm gonna be showing, like I said, a bunch of different versions of how to loop stuff. And the first one is using just this simple smokestack that is just going up. So something that is just going up is going to be the easiest. In many cases, you still have a lot of low densities. You still have, if you wanted to make it interesting, it still has to go a bit left to right. Not I wouldn't say interesting, but more realistic. Assuming that we're making something that would fit into the Star Wars game, which they have more realistic effects. So for this, I'm actually using Axiom. Why? Because I wouldn't say it's real time. So for the real time stuff, I would stick to Ambergen, which I can quickly show you later. Ambergen has some sweet tools to loop stuff, and their smoke actually looks very nice. Even the explosions are looking better and better every day. I've seen some
Hey, yeah. Urban. It looks like some people are saying that the stream is lagging a little bit. Everybody in the chat, are you still seeing a lag? It says that some people are just clicking reconnect and it works again.
Yeah, it's just the Ambergen, Webinar Jam, for some reason, keeps on doing this.
It looks like, Urban, that if people just click reconnect, that it's working for them. So I think we're good.
Okay, yeah. So I forgot to mention in the beginning, if you reconnect, so try reconnecting first. If it still doesn't work, we are gonna click the panic button and it's just gonna reset the stream. It helped the last time, but I guess we're having the same problems as the last time as well. So yeah, sorry guys. Yeah. Okay. Should I just continue, Caleb?
Yeah, it looks like you're good to go now.
All right. So yeah, like I said, I'm using Axiom. You can use Ambergen. Actually, let me just quickly do a sidetrack here, because I think Ambergen is freaking awesome, and the things that they're doing right now. Just do a light smoke. Yay. And you can see this is running in real time, so it's even faster. I don't want no animation on the light. It's running in real time. It's faster than even than Axiom, and they're getting some really nice details. And if I go to the looping part, and if I don't find it, immediately loop simulation. I'm going to do a dynamic quintic. So I'm not exactly sure. Maybe somebody in the chat knows what quintic blend is. I think it's just something to do with the way the curves are interpolating, right? But I'm not sure. So let me just do this as well. And you will see it's actually going to loop quite well. Let's give it some more frames here. And I'm just going to put this to 30. So yeah, you can get a looping smokestack in real time, and the looping is quite nice. In some cases, you will encounter the same issues. Like here, you saw that on the left. The smoke just appears because that whole shape is a bit offset from the mainstream, and that's always a problem that you're going to get with looping smokestacks and loopable simulations. You just have to experiment a bit and find that magical kind of blend in between. So what you can do with Ambergen, if you preview it, you're going to get the 6-point lighting right here. You get the alpha, you get the emissive if you have one, motion vectors done on the fly, and you can just export all of this and it works. And it's a beautiful program that is getting better and better each time. So, but this is a Houdini thing. So we have this done with Axiom. I'm not going to go through how the sim is done because I showed that in a tutorial that we have on our YouTube page. But yeah, we have this sim. And the easiest way to loop something is you can just use the make loop SOP that is included with the game dev tools. So make loop, and that actually works quite well. And in some cases, that will actually work quite well. You can just use that. But what I do is, in a lot of cases, I just do the manual setup here because I have some more control. You can obviously go inside of here and see how they're blending. You can see they're using the blend shape or the volume mix in this case. And they're blending, and they're using a bunch of expressions to blend. And that's fine, but I usually want more control. So in this case, if I go to my first frame, I change the frame. I just offset it by 180. It's an arbitrary number, just so I have something on the first frame. So the smokestack is fully initialized. You have to offset it either plus or minus 64 frames. If you're looping over 64 frames, it's obviously 64. If you're doing 128, you would plus or minus 128. And then what I'm doing in a lot of cases, you want to get rid of those minor densities because they're not going to be visible in the render. And in many cases, they're going to actually disappear in the game. They're not going to be. So if the density levels are too low, they're usually a bit problematic. So what I do in this case is I just refit and I do a power. And with this, I can get rid of any smaller densities that I don't need. And sure, that will change the simulation just a bit, the look, but it's going to give us a nicer blend between the two sims. So let me so I don't confuse anybody. So this is the original sim, right? And then we have another one that is being offset by 64 frames. And then I change the values here a bit. I also animate the exponent. So when the sim progresses, I'm gonna erode it in. So you see, I'm eroding it like that. And I'm animating that erosion. What I have to be careful at is that the beginning here, so the erosion is at the beginning is set to, should be set to 1. So yeah, the beginning is set to 1. I just have to be careful that on the right side, I also set it to 1 when it ends, because the ending of this is going to be the beginning of the left side. And then if we volume mix them, I'm just animating the blend. You can also animate the destination pre-mult and source pre-mult. That also works. But usually I just do a simple blend between the two. And then with the pyrobake, I just give it some, let me just reduce the density a bit, maybe a bit more. And let me do a quick flipbook so you guys can actually see that this is, looping. Yeah, and it might take some time to to actually loop this, which is fine. Caleb, do we have any questions right now that I can answer maybe?
Let's see here. Someone said there is volume simulation in Unreal now that works through material functions. How usable is it, or is it very limited?
Any sort of real-time volumetrics are still very limited, and I'm not exactly sure. Some games are going to use them that are coming out in the future, but the best case of use right now for like true volumetrics in Unreal or any other real-time engine are clouds. People are mostly using them for clouds. If you think about clouds in Red Dead Redemption, or I think even Fortnite are using volumetric clouds. I'm not sure of that. But there was a cinematic that was done in real time for Fortnite, and they also used real volumetric simulations, but it's still very limited. And I don't think a lot of people are going to use them yet, but it's coming. It's going to come for sure. Look at that. It's perfectly looping. It's beautiful. So this is something that you would do 6 or 5 different iterations of this, and you would just place them all over the game. You would do the motion vectors for it. You would then rotate it, scale it up or down, and that's it. So yeah, this is easy. This is easy mode. So you would do something like this for just a smokestack that just goes up. For smokestacks that go sideways, and I'm just using Axiom for this, that goes sideways. These are a bit more difficult. The looping techniques are mostly the same though. Oh, there's another thing that I forgot to mention here. When I'm refitting my values, I like to check what my maximum is. So my max volume. So there's a function called volume max, and then you essentially just give it this null, so the volume, and it's going to tell you what is the maximum volume density, the maximum density value. And you can also do for that the same thing for the volume minimum, and that's how you then remap them here with this volume VOP. But yeah, that's just a cool side note. So we have a smoke thing like this. And what is difficult with these guys always, and maybe somebody else has a better way of doing this. I didn't find any. I tried a lot of things, and it usually just looks even more fake. But I tried pushing the volume, so actually deforming the volumes downwards and deforming it to the, deforming essentially this guy more to this guy, and it always just looks even more fake. So I always find that a simple blend with changing the settings here and eroding it just a bit. I mean, in this case, I'm eroding it quite a lot, but doing erosions like this is going to give you the best result. And I got sidetracked a bit. So the reason why this is difficult is because of this and because of this. The easiest way to do it is if the smokestack is consistent like this, and it's fine if it has some variation, but as soon as you have this, it's very difficult to loop. So let's see how this one actually looks like at the end. And this one it's going to loop fine, but it's because it's been eroded quite a bit, and I took all the small wispiness out of it. And that's why it's going to look a bit better. And you can use this for wispy smoke, but for, yeah, so, it looks fine. It is looping. Like I said, this area is a bit problematic, and this is always going to be difficult. What you can do is try offsetting it a few times to try to get the right values at the end. Let's see if this is a bit better. Yeah, I think this works better than before. So you can see it's just a matter of experimenting just a bit. So I do this all the time, and it takes me quite a lot of time to actually get the smokestack to look perfect. So on this one on the right is a bit less eroded. So you can see we still have the density, and I'm doing the same thing here with this one, with the first volume VOP. So first off, I'm offsetting it. And then with the first volume VOP, I'm trying to normalize the density just a bit, because otherwise it's too dense. It's too dense here, and so the density level is all over the place because of the volume is dissipating. So this is too dense, and the density is too low. So I'm just trying to equalize it a bit, and then I do the erosion, and I'm animating the power. In this case, I'm using the maximum volume to 1. If you put this to 3, it's going to erode it even more. Offsetting this one, but this time I'm adding 128 frames instead of minus. So you also have to experiment if you want to add or if you want to subtract 128 frames in this case, because this one is 128 frames. And the reason why it's that long, and Preferably it would be 64, but for smokestacks like this, it's very difficult to get them to loop in 64 frames. So if we check this one and it's 128, I think it's looping quite nice, and we still have the low density here on the left, which is difficult to usually that's the problematic part when it comes to loopable simulations.
Urban, we had a question come in. Someone was asking that in the Real-Time Effects workshop, do you teach Unreal Engine from scratch, or do you have to have some sort of prior knowledge before you take the course?
Yeah, I would say prior knowledge for sure. It's not an intro class. It's not an intro class, and some people sometimes get stuck just a bit, but I try to help them in the best way I can. So meaning that I wouldn't say it's... So I'm going to say this. If you have experience with any other 3D packages, let's say you're a Houdini artist for the past 5 or 10 years, you're going to pick up Unreal quite fast. It's not going to be a big problem. If you don't have any experience in other packages and you're starting with Unreal, you probably should learn a bit about real-time and how to use Unreal before you take the workshop, because I think we go from medium to advanced topics in the workshop. So yeah. But yeah, you guys can see that this is, looping. It's a beautiful looping smokestack. I actually like this one. It has very nice shapes. It has nice dissipation, and it looks pretty decent. So yeah, that's how I would loop these more problematic ones. And sometimes the answer is to just have it loop over 128 frames, which is sometimes not preferable, and people might scream at you again. So just be cautious. So that's that. We have a pyro loop here. I'm just using in this case, I'm using the new pyro source. And well, actually, let me show you guys how I'm doing this. So I have a grid, and I'm scattering points, and I'm creating some noise and calculating the length just so I get this gradient right. I don't want to get too much in this, but I guess you can see the whole thing, how it's constructed. And when I copy, and the important thing is I bind everything to p-scale, because when I copy lines on top of it, I get this. And I use this as my emitter. It's actually quite important if you're doing realistic kind of smokestacks, to pay attention to your emitters. I do a trail just to get the velocities from this, and I create the volume out of it, just to create the emitter, and I scale it down because it was just a bit too big when I was doing the experiment, when I was doing the setup. And now if I sim it, it's going to go backwards. It's going to move. Oh no. So why is that? And it's actually a very cool method that a friend of mine, Jaden, he teaches the magic class. He showed this to me, and I was blown away. Essentially, this smokestack is going to the right. But what if, and this is what moves the smokestack. What if you just make a copy of this? You go to Actions, create a reference copy, and you negate it. You inverse the transformation. It's going to stay in its place, and it's going to feel like it has wind. And it's crazy. And the reason why you would use this technique instead of actually blowing wind, is that wind can, in a lot of cases, it can distort the smoke at the end. It can make it look too wispy. And if you want a real proper smokestack, in a lot of cases, this is the way to go. And you can see this is what we get. And it looks quite realistic, and we don't get any distortion with the velocities at the end, that you usually get if you're blowing wind in that direction, and it looks pretty damn good, I think. And this one is a lot easier to loop. Why? Because if you look at this shape, like I was saying before, it's very triangular. So it doesn't have, the other one was like this. This one is much more linear in that case. It still has some interesting shapes, like here. This is still problematic. But when you cache it out and you time shift it, and if you just blend the volume, let me just show you guys. We just do 4 frames, close this one down, and just do a flip book. Okay, so that's the problematic area that I was talking about. You can see it here. It just pops. And that is going to be impossible to fix, at least with INO. So this is the part where I was saying that I even tried volume deformation and trying to push this down, but then it looks fake. In this case, what we can do is just change the values a bit until we don't get that part, and it's going to look better. Let me just see if I fixed it on this side. So yeah, if we check out this side, essentially I just offsetted the value. It's still the same sim. It's going to be quite a nice loop. So yeah, there we go. So essentially, sometimes it does come down to just offsetting the values here until you get the two sides. So I'm always looking at them as the left and the right side, and they kind of have to match in a way. Preferably, they have to almost match when they in that cross section where they actually loop. In this case, again, I was eroding it in because this part, if I don't do this, it will still loop. It's still gonna do its thing. But you see, there was a problematic part. Let's see, maybe it's actually gonna work, but you can see here. So this part is, maybe you don't see it over the stream. Let me zoom in, but it's just kind of, it pops in, right? And that is the problematic part that is very difficult to achieve. That's why I usually just erode it. In this case, I eroded it quite a bit, but you can just do it a bit less. And then this side has to match. Otherwise, if this side has a different volume density, you will see it's not going to loop anymore. It will actually have a pop that will appear. You see it's popping here when it loops. So this side has to match in terms of the volume density. And let's see if this helps, because we got rid of some of the density that was happening here at the top. Yeah, it's still happening a bit. That's why I was eroding it even more. But when you see this in the game, it's usually fine, and you don't need those very low density values, because like I said, they're always a bit problematic in the game as well when you put it through the game engine. So let's see, we have the same setup here with just a different sim, and this one is a bit more chaotic and it's a lot bigger. So if we run it like the same thing, we offset it, we erode it just a bit on both sides. In this, yeah, so we mix it, and then the pyro volume is nothing special. I'm just adding some smoke at the end, and let's see how this works. And you can see it has a nice loop as well. And this is only because the shapes are kind of linear here and they're matching. And that's what you have to be careful with, to match those left and right side when it comes to looping. And that's why sometimes it takes a bit longer. But you can see it looks quite nice, especially with that technique where you just inverse the transformations. I think that's pretty cool. This next one is essentially the one that I was using for the Unreal smokestack, and that's also the one that is rendered here. So that's how this one looks like. And you can see it's even longer and bigger. than the other ones that I was showing so far. And honestly, there's nothing too special about this one. It's just using the same looping system that I showed you guys. And I believe, Caleb, I think we can, after the stream, we can share the HIP files, because I think we can share those.
Absolutely. We'll email everyone who's in this stream in about 5 hours with a link to watch the webinar replay, and then we'll include the files in that email as well.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, sounds amazing. Okay, so then the next thing, actually kind of the last thing that I wanted to show is this loopable explosion thing. So I was very impressed by this. The work, I don't know who did this. Maybe if you guys know this guy, let me know. I would like to congratulate him and maybe even ask him. Maybe they used something different than I did, but this is my result with having explosions loop like that. And it maybe looks difficult, but it's not that difficult that you would think. It's a lot of just messing around with the values. So I have explosion, and it looks, let me just zoom in. It looks like this. And it just goes up. And you want it to go up as much as you can. And you don't want it, in this case, it's actually expanding quite a lot, which could, again, be a bit problematic for the loop. So you want it to stay here, but explosions are going to be expanding to each side. So that's something to keep in mind. The way I was trying to fix that is you have it go up faster. You have a very low cooling rate. You don't need expansion, even though in this case, I think I had it on, which was a mistake. So yeah, you don't want expansions because that will actually make it go wider. But it worked out in this case. So there's an explosion. I did all of this is not that important. I just removed the velocity because I didn't need it in this case. Pyro volume is just to get a different shading, so it looks a bit more bright in this case. And then I time shifted it again like this. So in the beginning, we already have something. So that's time shifted. And then I moved everything down just a bit. And this, how much you move it down, it totally depends on the simulation. The next part that is important in this case is the camera, because the camera is actually going to be moving up. So you can do this a couple of ways. Either you animate perfectly this smokestack going down, or you move the camera up. In my case, I was just moving the camera up. And if you take a look, it's going to be, the camera is going to be perfectly following the smoke. So it's just going to go up, right? By how much you animate this is kind of not scientific. At least I didn't do it in a scientific way. It was still an approximation. I was literally eyeballing it. So if you thought that's how I do it, I eyeball stuff and it's an approximation. It doesn't have to be necessarily 100% correct. Well, it has to be at least 98% correct for it to work, but it's obviously better if it's 100%. In this case, it's almost 100% correct, and it's just moving completely up. And that's how you get it to stay in the middle of the frame. Then you time shift it, and you can see when you time shift it, it starts quite below. So you have to transform it up. So they actually, when you loop them, they are on top of each other like that. And then when the one finish, the second one will appear out of it. And here we have that same problem with the low density appearing here on the right. So you can fix that by eroding them like that, or using the power. It also depends on the sim quite a lot. But yeah, you can erode it just a bit to get rid of those low density areas. Obviously not too much, because you still need some of the core density. In this case, it was kind of working, but you can see here I was eroding it just a bit as well, just to get rid of some of the low density areas. I do the volume mix here. And then on this particular case, I did another erode at the end. So this is, again, a fit, a ramp, and a power. And the reason I'm doing it with a ramp, because I can just target, you see those areas? That's problematic. You don't want that. That is not going to loop well. You want to erode those areas like that. And that will make it loop much better, maybe even a bit more. So you see, you want them gone, essentially, and that will create a much better loop like that. The last part to the puzzle is you have this stem happening here, and you need to remove it for it to look like it's actually just floating up. There's a couple of ways of doing it. The simple way is just a sphere. You convert it into VDB. You have to link the transform to your camera. So this transform, you copy paste it, you copy the parameter, you paste it here, and you can see the sphere is moving with the camera 100%. And then you just use a VDB combine and you can multiply it, or I think use a VDB combine, or you use a volume mix for this. And that will get rid of the stem at the bottom. And then at the end, I moved everything up a bit like that. And you can see this bottom part is gone. And then when you do a pyro bake volume, I just reduced the shadow density a bit. And if we preview this, we will essentially get that result that I was showing you guys. But I want to show it again because I think it looks pretty cool. And something like this is very useful in doing game effects. Unless you're doing stylized game effects, which is a completely different thing, because for stylized stuff, you usually paint your smoke puffs. It's a 2D effects thing that you have to do. And we actually show some of that in the workshop as well, how to do more stylized VFX. Actually, the first 4 to 5 weeks are more stylized, and then we go into Houdini and Unreal, and we do more realistic effects. But yeah, we're almost... let's give it a few more frames for this to finish. Almost done. Actually, I forgot another thing I'm going to show you guys real quick, because that's actually quite essential. But yeah, here you go. It's looping. And something like this would be difficult to achieve, even though I love Ambergen. I think it's amazing. But doing this in Ambergen, I don't think it's possible right now. So in this case, you have to use the power of Houdini and using the volumes, the power of volumes. One thing you have to be careful with. So like I said, you move this guy up, right, from here to here, so they match in position. You actually have to go to frame 64. Actually, you have to go to the left first and go to the beginning. So this frame has to match the last frame. In order to do that, you can do a snapshot here like this, and you can view it in a horizontal wipe like that. I'm pretty sure some of you probably didn't know you can do this. So now you have to go to frame 64, and they have to match. So right now I'm using that preview on the right side, and on the left side, we have the live view. So that's how you match them in terms of position. And when you do that, they're actually gonna then perfectly loop and be on top of each other. Because like I said, this frame, so the last frame has to be the same as the first one. And that's the way you do it. Actually, it's not the same frame. It has to be a progression, 1 frame forward, to make it loop perfectly like this. All right, so that's how you do that loop. And then I did, let me just remove this. I did another variation of it. And When you do a variation, you have to change the camera moving upwards because the simulation is going to go up at a different speed. So you have to change a lot of things. This one is way more low res because I just needed something fast to preview. And that is something quite essential when you do stuff like this, is to preview at probably a lower res so you can get the looping working and then the system working. And then you do a higher res sim, and then you will obviously have to adjust just a bit. But everything is the same. And when you loop it and you view it from this camera, and we do this, so we remove the bottom part. In this case, so we have your sphere, you do a VDB, you have to do a VDB activate when you do the noise. Otherwise, it doesn't have enough. I always say real estate, which means that it just doesn't have enough space around the volume, around the VDB. So you have to extend the voxels to actually, so when you push your position with the volume sample and noise, it's actually going to go outside the bounds. And then I did a bit of a smooth. I pushed it up. Probably the smooth is a bit too much. And when you do the volume mix, this is what it's going to do. You see, it's just going to erode that. And because of this noise, without the noise, it's going to be a straight line. With the noise, it's going to break that line. It's going to feel more natural. And when let's loop this one should be a lot faster because it's actually quite low res. It's still quite slow. Yeah. This is when using Ambergen would be a lot faster. Actually would be in real time with Ambergen, but yeah, it's just, yeah, you win some, you lose some. Anyway, and you have this, and this one is perfect. Obviously it is low res, but as far as looping goes for an explosion going up, this is pretty perfect. And I think we got very close to this example that I was showing in the beginning. And with this, yeah, you can do amazing. It's very packed. And let's just take another last look at the Unreal project with a nice little god ray here. And you can see how nice the volumes are actually reacting to light as well. Look at that. It's beautiful. Look at the god rays. Oh my God. Let's remove this and create the sequencer. And if we play this, it's pretty cool, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have. Oh, it's been, so yeah, it's literally 1 hour. That's fine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I'm super impressed. Obviously, we have a lot of questions that people have about real-time workflows. We're not going to be able to get to them all, but I think it'd be cool if we did maybe 3 to 5 questions here at the end. So if you have a question for Urban, please post it now. We'll start with some of the previous questions here. So a lot of people were asking the same question we get every webinar. What are your PC specs so they can know what type of machine you're working on?
I'm working on my phone. This is not even a PC.
Wow.
This is the best. This is the next gen Apple phone with 4 processors. So that's why it runs so fast. Like look at this. Look how fast the video is going. That's how fast this computer is. I honestly stop asking questions like that. It doesn't matter what your PC specs are. But I do have it's a Ryzen Threadripper, some version of it, and then I have 128 gigs of RAM and a RTX 270. So it's the CPU is quite beefy. I have a lot of RAM because I do a lot of sims, My GPU is not that powerful because I don't need it yet, but I think I'm going to switch to a better GPU just because I think I'm going to be doing way more real-time smoke sims with Ambergen. But yeah, guys, like, I don't know, like any PC nowadays is so fast already. So you just need a decent PC. That's it.
We had some more questions about the usage of real-time, especially looping real-time effects for non-real-time purposes. So for example, pre-rendered stuff that's going to be VFX work. Are there any uses for the same techniques that you outlined today to be used on typical VFX projects?
Yeah, there are, especially when you have a big scene with a lot of fog and smoke. You would essentially rather have that smoke just loop. So you have two ways of doing it. You can either sim like 500 frames, which is possible, and you can do that in a pre-rendered cinematic, or you would have a looping smoke, fog, or whatever. If it's in the background, it's completely fine. You can still do it like that. So it's still quite usable. Like you saw with the big smokestacks, like that loop. So this guy. So having this loop would actually be useful in a pre-rendered cinematic, especially if it's in the background kind of scenario, because it's good enough. And the loop is so nice in this case that you wouldn't see it. And if you have depth of field and everything, it's completely fine. Yeah, you can still use it. But in most cases than not, you would just render 500 frames and do unique simulations just to be 100% sure. But we were working on a cinematic where we had so much fire all around the space that we rendered the fire out and placed it on cards, even though it was a pre-rendered cinematic, because it was so much fire in the scene that it was very difficult to work with. And we essentially did a similar workflow that you would do for games, but we did it for a pre-rendered cinematic and it worked perfectly. So there you go.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So we had some more people asking questions about Unreal 5, and the course currently, it was created in, was it Unreal 4?
Yeah.
So will the course still be relevant once Unreal 5 comes out in the near future?
I have no idea. I think yes, it's going to be still relevant, but I think when Unreal 5 comes out, we're going to update the workshop, because obviously in the workshop, we are already using Niagara, but even that version of Niagara that we're using in the workshop has been updated. So we are currently working on a new overview of how Niagara works for Unreal 4.26, because it's already a bit different than what I used when I was recording the workshop. So I would bet that when Unreal 5 comes out, they would change even more stuff and they would add more functionality to Niagara. So yes, I think we're going to have to update the workshop for Unreal 5 when that comes out. And I think that's going to be end of next year, I think. Something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Well, we do have a few more questions. I don't know if any of them are broad enough to address specifically in the webinar with everyone, but I do want everyone to know that you can email us at info@rebelway.net with any specific questions that you have, and Urban or someone else on the team would be more than happy to answer those questions. So just a few housekeeping things. So, obviously Urban was showing you how to create smoke and explosions using real-time. A lot of people on the stream like doing explosions that are going to be pre-rendered and then used in VFX work. If that's more your desire to learn, then I would recommend checking out our explosion effects course as well. Saber has done an incredible job with that course, and we are just seeing a lot of really incredible renders come out of there. A lot of the shots from the student reel that we watched at the beginning were actually from that course as well. So, just definitely keep that in mind whenever you are trying to decide which course is right for you. And I see one question, someone was asking that if they purchase real-time effects, will they get the updated content? And the answer is yes. If we update a course, you will have access to the latest content at Rebelway. We always try to stay up to date with the latest trends, and so we'll update our courses as we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think that's all that I have. Urban, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No.
No,
I mean, I would maybe I can just close it off. I think what we tackled here in this webinar is actually quite important for any VFX artist that wants to do, real-time for effects for real-time games. It's something that is used quite a lot, and there's more to this looping stuff. There's more things that you can loop and different loopable examples, but that's really the gist of it. And then when it comes to explosions, you can some explosions are difficult to loop. And if you have a hero explosion in the game, in a lot of cases, it's not going to be looped. It's just going to be just a long render. And in many cases, you can, like I was telling you guys, you can stitch 64 frames in the red channel and 64 frames in the green channel and actually stitch them in a material in the engine. So then you have 128 a sim. The reason why you would do something like that, because the resolution is going to be higher. Because if you pack 128 frames in a 4K texture, the resolution will suffer because of it. If you render 64 frames in one channel, 64 in the other, and still have a 4K texture, you will have twice the resolution. So it would look a lot better. So for hero explosions, you would do stuff like that. So there are caveats and per case examples and needs that you have to kind of apply when you're doing effects like this. And then, like I said, you have then stylized effects that are completely different to what we were doing here. But then each game requires different techniques. But yeah. Also, Andreas is asking, but the channels are not compressed equally. Yes, and I don't remember. I think is it the blue one that has the most compression? I don't remember. And sometimes you can see it. Sometimes you can see it in the alpha. So when you stitch it, sometimes the gamma or something is going to change because the compression is different between the channels. And Andreas knows this. And this is a bit beyond of the scope of the webinar, but I do cover it in the workshop, and he is 100% right. Yeah. You mentioned that you get yelled at for making an effect too high quality. So I do. I always do it. I make it look. So my theory is I make it look as good as I can. I make it look as good as I can, and the overdraw would be essentially everything. When you look in Unreal, let me see. Where is it? 8. It's 8. Hey, here we go. Oh, am I still in the camera? Wait. So here you have the max shader complexity thing, and I don't know why it doesn't allow me to move. Here we go. So you can see this is essentially the complexity. The more grids you have stacked on top of each other that are transparent, the more red it's going to become. You can see here this is just one grid. When you have two of them, it becomes red, more red, and then here it almost goes to white. And the more, if you do this and the whole screen is red, people are going to yell at you because it's not going to run. It's not going to run efficiently on consoles, for instance. When we were doing Gears, we were working for two different consoles that had different performances. So let's say you have your Xbox, and then you have the Xbox, what was it, X, and then the newest one, Xbox One. So they had different performances, and you have to be careful essentially your game has to run on all consoles, and you have to be very careful of your performance in that case. But what I do is I make it look as good as I can, and then people will tell me that it's not optimized enough, and then I have to strip away the layers until it still looks okay, but then the technical team is happy. So that's what I do in most cases. Do you go over flow maps for slower effects? I do. I certainly show how to do it. And like I said, I only show how to do vector maps in Houdini, but you can do it with Ambergen, and you have this program called Slate. I think it's just Slate. Or you can do it in After Effects with Twixtor. Twixtor will essentially create motion vectors for you. And in some cases that they are even better. There's a very good blog post by Clement Lozar. Let me try to find it. Clement is a buddy of mine. It's funny enough, like we're from the same country. Just a fun fact, which is always fun to see people. I'm just trying to find this. So this thing. So Clement did a whole breakdown on how this works. And you can see this is without motion vectors and this is with motion vectors, and how you don't even need any frames. For you can have, like, this is probably 32 frames for the explosion, and you can make it look like it's running in slow motion. And it's freaking amazing. So good. And he did a motion vector. I think this is I just show it in a video form and actually show how everything works and explain the nodes. So yeah, that's a fun fact there.
We have one last question here. So someone was asking, where do you go to listen to presentations or to read white papers on real-time effects work?
Sorry, I was reading the chat. Can you repeat?
So people are wondering, basically, where do you go to brush up your skills on, real-time effects work by watching SIGGRAPH presentations or technical white papers? Are there any resources that you go to?
Yeah, so Andreas posted it, and he did a talk as well because he worked on, was it Battlefield 1, Andreas? Battlefield, some of the Battlefield stuff, right? And he did a GDC talk about that as well. And Andreas has a ton of educational material on real-time stuff and Houdini stuff on Vimeo, so you can check that out as well. Battlefront 2. Oh shit, amazing. So maybe Andreas should be doing this webinar. Like, what am I even doing here? Actually, that might be a good idea to have Andreas on the webinar next time, and maybe he can share some of the experience.
What do you guys think? Should we do that?
Yes. We should. I think we should. Anyway, GDC. Guys, I always misspell it. Maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about and can post it in the chat, but I will try to find it. Just give me a second.
Urban, could you also post the link to Clement's blog in the chat?
I think somebody did already.
Okay. Sounds good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, our courses start on Friday, this Friday. But if you sign up, you actually get instant access to the entire week 1 that you can go ahead and start watching. So you don't actually have to wait until Friday to start watching your content. And just so everyone knows, we will also be uploading the live stream or the replay of this live stream this afternoon, and then we'll post it in HD form on YouTube on Thursday. We'll try to do it around 11 a.m. as well.
Okay, I found it. Let me go back. So this channel is also very cool for anything related to real-time, just going into the mathematical side of real-time as well, like how to use UVs, how to calculate. I learn a lot of the technical stuff from that channel, even though I would consider myself more of an artistic VFX artist. Obviously using Houdini, I have to be technical to some degree, but for Unreal, I use that channel quite a lot as well Thomas. The way he teaches is great, and the content he produces is amazing. Yep. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it for this one.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Again, feel free to email us if you have any questions, and we are super excited for the next one. So hopefully we will be around the third week of February back with a brand new webinar.
Awesome. Sounds good. Cool.
Thanks.
Thanks everybody for joining up, and see you in the next one. Yep. Bye.